This whole push by the US to get Greenland, it's not just some giant real estate deal. It's a full-blown geopolitical crisis, and it's pushing old alliances right to the breaking point. And it might just tear up the rulebook that's kept things, well, relatively peaceful for the last 75 years.
And then, bam, this bombshell statement drops, supposedly from Donald Trump. And get this, it wasn't aimed at some rival nation, but at America's closest friends. It was a threat of economic warfare that sent shockwaves all the way from Washington to Brussels, and it turned a tense dispute into a major confrontation. So that brings us to the big question, right? What is really going on here? Why on earth would the United States risk everything for a giant island of ice? The answers are complicated, they're layered, and honestly, they're a little bit scary. So let's dig in.
Okay, so to really get a handle on this, we gotta start with the flashpoint, that tariff ultimatum. This wasn't just some random shot in the dark. No, it was a very specific, calculated response to something the White House saw as a direct challenge to its authority. And what's really wild is who was in the crosshairs. I mean, we're not talking about adversaries here. These are the pillars of the NATO alliance. And there was a very clear reason they were targeted, because of a coordinated move the US administration saw as a major provocation.
And that reason, well, that's the heart of this whole standoff. It was the moment that all the diplomatic tension finally boiled over, and it created a very real, very visible crack in the Western alliance. So here's what set it all off. The US was putting some serious pressure on Denmark to sell Greenland, and these 8 countries decided to take a stand. They actually sent troops. Now, not an invasion force, but it was a huge symbolic message that basically said, Greenland doesn't stand alone, Denmark is our ally, and we've got their back.
And the message from the people actually living there? It was even louder. Protesters filled the streets in Greenland and Denmark, making it crystal clear that for them, this wasn't some abstract political game. This was about their home, their identity, and a fierce refusal to be bought and sold. Okay, and this is where it gets messy. A lot of analysts are pointing out what looks like a massive double standard. Think about it. When Russia makes moves in Ukraine, citing its own security, it's condemned as an illegal invasion. But when the US uses similar language about Greenland, it's framed as, a strategic necessity. And it's that apparent hypocrisy that has so many people worried. So is this really just about security? Or is there something else going on here? I mean, what could possibly be hiding under all that ice that's worth risking an alliance that's lasted 75 years?
Well, the official story is something called the Golden Dome Project. It's a proposed, massive $175 billion missile shield designed to stop those new hypersonic missiles from Russia and China. And the argument from the administration is that to build it, they need total and complete control of Greenland.
But is that the whole story? I mean, look, the US already has a huge military base there, right? Thanks to a deal from 1951. So why this sudden all-or-nothing push for a complete takeover now? That's the question that leads to some of the other unspoken motivations. Well, a few other ideas are floating around. First up, plain old political distraction. Create a crisis abroad to pull attention away from problems at home. Second, there's the money. As the ice melts, it's revealing what could be a treasure trove of rare earth minerals. And third, it's all about location, location, location. The Arctic is opening up new shipping lanes, this polar Silk Road, and Greenland is basically the gatekeeper. And this focus on Greenland, it's not new, not at all. Back in the 60s, you had Project Iceworm, this secret, kind of crazy plan for a nuclear missile base under the ice. Then in '68, a B-52 bomber carrying 4 hydrogen bombs crashed nearby, a major broken arrow incident. And now you've got this Greenland Annexation Act floating around Congress that would give the president huge powers to get the job done. This has been simmering for a long, long time. So all of this, it leads us to the most immediate and honestly the most dangerous fallout from this whole standoff. The very real chance that NATO, maybe the most successful military alliance in history, could just shatter from the inside. To really get why this is so serious, we need to talk about one thing: NATO's Article 5. This is the absolute heart and soul of the alliance. It's simple: an attack on one is an attack on all. It's the promise that has kept the peace in Europe for decades.
And that's where we hit the paradox, the one that could literally break NATO. What happens when the threat isn't coming from the outside, but from the inside, from the most powerful member of the club? The protector is now seen as the threat.
It basically creates this impossible civil war scenario inside the alliance. Technically, under the treaty, everyone from the UK to Germany is supposed to jump in and defend Denmark.
But let's be real. Are they really going to go up against the United States? The answer is almost definitely no. And if Article 5 is shown to be just a piece of paper, then that whole security promise that's kept Europe safe, it just evaporates.
And look, the damage wouldn't just stop with NATO. The much bigger fear is what this means for the rest of the world. It could set a precedent, one that kicks off a whole new, dangerous era where the law of the jungle takes over.
Just think about the domino effect here. Step 1, the US says national security and takes Greenland. Okay, so what's stopping China from using the exact same excuse to grab land from India? What's to stop any powerful country from doing the same? It basically gives a green light for a global land grab, sending us back to a pretty dark era of conquest.
Which brings us to one final, pretty chilling question. This whole thing with Greenland, it's so much more than a fight over a big chunk of ice. It's really a test. It could decide whether we keep living in a world based on international rules, or if we're stumbling into a brand new era where the only rule is might makes right.